but a little bit about the internship program we run here at Brooklyn Park. Let me just pull up the chat here. Cool. We have been running an internship program here since 2014. We've had 14 interns across 2 different teams. We had a couple interns who worked in our public works division. And I'm definitely boasting, but also I think it's important to kind of ground this advice and stuff that we have had nearly 100% placement of our former interns in the GIS field, in the data and tech field. So we've just been really fortunate to have great interns that have gone on to do awesome things. But also just for some grounding, kind of when I'm talking about internships, I think it's important also to talk about reasons to have interns as well as things that are not reasons to have interns. So I think internships are like having an intern is a really great opportunity to test out your skills. I think that the best way to test whether or not you know something is to have to teach it to somebody else. That's actually why I did this presentation. Was I thought like, okay, I've been running an internship, but can I give advice about one? It really forces you to get outside your box. I think this group does a great job of that as well. But talking to people, bringing in newer GIS professionals who are going to ask a lot of questions, and multiple times interns will ask questions of me and dig deeper until I get to the point where my answer is, honestly, that's just the way I've always done it, but you're right. Like, I need to think deeper about that. And then, of course, it's investing in the future. We know that new talent is the lifeblood of any industry, and GIS is no exception there. So making sure that we are creating pathways for new GIS professionals to join our ranks. And then as far as like not reasons I feel like to have interns, these are more the like cliche reasons. Like I feel like how you see interns treated on TV and stuff like that. But really, one-way workflows, and by that I mean just like giving an intern a project to work on for 3 months, 6 months, whatever it is, and not really having that back and forth collaboration with them, I think you're not getting the most out of an internship doing that. Of course, only teaching what you know. So, really no intern in 2024 probably needs to know ArcMap. They may still need it, of course, for some stuff, but make sure that you're leaning into that emerging tech. And that's actually a really good opportunity, is to task interns with that. If you find like, I want to do more with Survey 123, I want to start using Experience Builder, I just don't have the time. Interns are a really great asset, or a really great people to say, go learn this and then teach me. And then it's also just it's not a reason to have an intern just to offload busy work. There's plenty of really awesome GIS contractors if you need to georeference a bunch of imagery or digitize some data that you can hire to do that kind of stuff. I think it's important when you bring on interns to focus on training and development with them, and not just that busy work stuff. So this presentation, this advice starts at the point that you've hired an intern. I think I could do a whole presentation about the actual hiring process. But just talking about like you're getting ready to hire an intern. One thing to remember, even as you're going into like the interviews, is that first impressions happen at first contact. So when you're interviewing, just like keep in mind, like one of those people is almost definitely going to be your intern. So when you're talking with them, make sure you're hyping up the job, make sure they know that you're excited for them to be starting, because that can really set the tone for the rest of the internship. You want the intern to arrive. They're going to be nervous, but you want them to be excited as well, to dive into the work. I found it's really helpful to prepare a first week schedule, and I have a couple screenshots of what that looks like on the next slide. Really just going through every day, like more or less hourly, like what are we going to do in your first week? For a lot of interns, this may be their first office job. It might be their first like professional job. So helping them understand like, what even is this going to be? Like laying that at the beginning. Again, it's another thing to like set the tone, set the pace, and can be really useful to help them kind of get through that first week, which is always just going to be a little stressful. When they're there in the office, or if they're remote, the advice that I've gotten also just from talking with former interns about like how could I make their first week go better is, you want to be present, you want to be available, but you can be too available too. So make sure that you're giving new interns, really any new staff, but new interns, some space to breathe. So make sure that there's some time in the schedule for them to just like be at their desk, look at any documents you gave them, check out their email, even just like, check on their phone, give them space to decompress basically during that first week. And then a really easy and fun thing to do is if you have any branded swag, like, we have water bottles, we have mints, things like that, have those ready on their desk. It shows that you're prepared for them, that you've been planning ahead, you're excited. It gives them an early sense of like, I belong at this organization. So here's a couple of those screenshots of that first week schedule. For several years, I just used Microsoft Word and I just wrote out a table like this. We didn't follow these hours exactly, but it still gave a good idea of just like what are we going to do each day. And it was nice to go through it the first day and then each day be able to just like talk through like, okay, here's what we're going to do today. Here's what we're going to do tomorrow. Since then, we do a lot of our project management in Microsoft Planner. So I do the same first week schedule. It's just in Planner instead. And I also have a plan where I will drop just ideas that I have for GIS projects that I'm not working on, because that's another thing that they can look through and see like real projects that they can work on while they're at the internship. So they can start to early on get an idea of what am I going to do while I'm here. So onboarding doesn't end after the first week. It's a long process. But pretty quickly you can start getting into that. How am I going to develop my intern? How am I going to help them thrive? So one thing I've always tried to do is find a first project that they can do start to finish in the first couple of weeks, whether that's a web map, PDF map. I try to have it be something like physical that they can show to friends and family that are going to be asking them, how's your internship going? And being able to give them something that they can show to people and say, I built this. We all know like um, in our job of choice that's a really, really fulfilling thing. So giving that early win can help them invest and know like, that's awesome. I already built this thing. Think of like all the other stuff I'm going to build while I'm here. Whenever possible, try to make sure that you're training with work. By that, I really just mean like try to make sure that you're giving them stuff they're going to learn from. So again, that's avoiding the busy work. Not that you can't give them like no busy work. It's still like interns still need to learn how to digitize data. It's important stuff, core skills, but try to make sure you're always pushing them with the work that you have. But of course, like we can't give our interns access to everything. So I'm not going to have my interns doing a bunch of stuff in ArcGIS Enterprise, but I can still schedule demos. If I'm working on stuff that I don't have my interns do, I can still have them shoulder surf or job shadow for a day or plan a demo. Or if I know I'm going to do something, I'll say, hey, do you want to see how to do this, to help them start to understand that bigger picture of GIS that even if they're not going to do during the internship, they're getting exposure to, so that when they do start doing that kind of stuff at a new job, they'll have seen it once before. And that really gets to like teaching them the big picture, not just getting into that daily work. And then celebrating successes, both, big projects they do and just small reminders of like, again, this might be their first professional job, probably their first GIS job. So they are working on building their own confidence and can I actually, be a GIS professional? I remember when I was an intern, my boss periodically at the end of the day, if I happened to see him and I'd say goodbye, and he wouldn't do it every time, but sometimes he would just say, as I was leaving, he'd say, hey, great work today. And it meant a lot to me that he took the time to like appreciate me, even if it wasn't for like anything big. And it felt sincere because it wasn't like an everyday thing, but just like finding those opportunities to reassure them that, they're doing a good job. And then of course, when things aren't going well, you're making sure that you're correcting those for them. A bonus tip, if you have any tools that you use to do your job, that can be really, really helpful. This is one where we don't have to log, like, we don't code our timesheets or anything here, but I keep a daily log of like, where's my work going to? So which departments am I doing work for? Planned work is like my core stuff. Unplanned is when apps break and I'm fixing them so I can kind of report out and understand like, where's my work going to? So any kind of tools that you use is something that you can give your interns exposure to, whether that's things like project charters, 5-year plans, give them some of those career tools early on so they can start playing around with them and seeing which ones they might want to use. When you're getting into feedback, if you want a feedback model to use and learn about, I would highly recommend something called Radical Candor. It's basically centered around a matrix of caring personally about people, but also challenging them directly. So it's not passive aggression, it's not active aggression. It's really about leaning into to giving interns feedback because they're new. They're gonna need to be told, like, this map is not good enough, right? But that's saying it that way is not the nicest way to say it. So, making sure that constructive feedback is a healthy thing and it's a regular thing. And one way that you can do that is lead by example. So I like to, as early as possible when I'm working on things, share them with my interns, ask for feedback, not necessarily just openly because they might be a little uncomfortable. Like if your boss is just like, what do you think of this thing? And they don't really know you yet, they might not be honest. But if I say like, yeah, I'm working on this, I don't really like this symbol that I'm using. Do you have any ideas for another one? And then if they give an idea, say, oh, that's great, and then actually add that to your map so they can see that they can give you constructive feedback and you will take it and you'll thank it for them and you'll use it. And that's that leading by example part that can help them feel more comfortable receiving constructive feedback. Making sure it's clear and open-ended. So kind of like the example, I was like, you're not just gonna say that map isn't good. Like it might be clear. Well, no, it might be open-ended, but it's not clear, right? So point out like, maybe the legend isn't in the right place, or maybe a script that they wrote is a little too redundant kind of stuff. And setting aside regular time for check-ins is a really great place to do that work. So just making sure that you're available. It also shows them that you're taking that work relationship seriously because you're blocking off time and you need to defend that time. So you can't let people schedule over it. So they know that you are prioritizing helping and managing them. In most cases, your internship is going to be seasonal or temporary. So on the very first day, you and the intern both know it's not a permanent gig. So I encourage bosses to lean into helping their interns network because they're not going to be staying. So anything you can do to help them start building that network so they can land the next job is great to do. So connecting them with any peer mentors within your organization. So if you have interns that are interested in specific areas like planning, public works, engineering, helping them see like what does a career in that field potentially look like can be really helpful. If there's other interns at your organization, that's really awesome connection because they can connect with other employees who are new to their field, whether it's GIS or not. The last couple of years, we have had 2 interns at the same time at Brooklyn Park, which it's a lot more work, but I've gotten really good feedback both years that having a co-intern is really helpful. So if that's something you can budget for, that's really nice to have. I had a co-intern when I was an intern, so I can attest that was a really nice resource. If you've been running an internship program, make sure you're connecting your current interns with former interns. That's just an amazing connection to give your current interns to talk with people who were literally in the job that they were in. It's just they can inspire my current interns way more than I can because it's just this really awesome connection that you see. And then of course other GIS peers. So I mean definitely like as y'all start hiring interns, like I'd encourage you to get them involved in this group if you want. They're more than welcome. We've had multiple interns in these meetings to help them network and get connected in the Twin Cities. If there are other organizations that they're interested in and GIS people, setting up informational interviews can be really nice. I've had multiple interns that I've connected them with people at the DNR just because we don't do that kind of work at Brooklyn Park. To at least help them explore like, well, if you do want to get more into natural resources, why don't you talk to some people who actually do that work instead of just here read an article. I can help you connect with those people and get your face in front of them. This was a presentation for the consortium, so I'm not gonna push hard on this. I know a lot of us are consortium members, but really just like have them join groups and stuff like that early on so that they're not also solely reliant on you and your current organization to start building that network. Again, most of these are going to be temporary positions, so helping people to take that next step is important. I encourage all of my interns to make online portfolios. In the hundreds of job applications I've reviewed, the number that include a portfolio is extremely small. So it's a really big differentiator, and particularly early on in your career, I think throughout as well, but having an online portfolio right on your resume so you can share work samples is just super powerful. We all know that the best way to show GIS is with concrete examples. So I always encourage my interns to build that online portfolio, start adding stuff that they're working on at Brooklyn Park during the internship so they don't get to the end and have to think like, oh my gosh, like what did I even work on over the last 6 months? You're in the intern's comfort level, you can help with job search and with vetting applications. A lot of us have looked at plenty of job applications, so we can tell if it was written by a GIS person or if it was copy and pasted by an HR person who found something on Indeed, or if it was written by ChatGPT these days. So, offering that is nice. A lot of interns haven't necessarily had to navigate asking for professional references, especially from a current employer. So if you're willing to do that while the intern's there or after, I think it's really helpful to explicitly tell your intern at some point, like, feel free to use me as a professional reference, because they may want to, but not be comfortable asking you because they're just not sure how to navigate that relationship with the current boss. One thing I've had all of my interns do is write a letter for the next intern. So I have a collection of these. I've gotten really good feedback from interns on it. It's super heartwarming for me too, but it's a nice, like, full circle thing to do because the intern will, at the beginning of the internship, read the letters. And now that they're at the end of the internship, they can realize, like, you've completed this step in your career and you're now at the point that you are imparting advice to the people who are going to come after you. So I hope that it helps them get in the mindset of that they're ready to launch, because they are now at the place where the people that they were inspired by used to be, and now it's their job. They're going to get to inspire future interns and then go on and do awesome things. After the internship, of course, make sure you're staying connected. There are multiple former Brooklyn Park interns in this group right now. There's a transition that you have to do from being their boss to a peer relationship. Don't try to rush it. It can take time. But things that you can do to help that is just check in with them after the first week, the first month, whatever feels right, to just ask how things are going. If they're in the public sector, offering, if they have questions about stuff, to do screen shares and stuff and help solve those things. And that can really help, I think. It can just help establish that new relationship because they don't report to you anymore. So you have to kind of change those dynamics a little bit. And being a little proactive about that, I think, can help. So yeah, like I said, check in after they've settled, encourage, again, this was for GIS LAS, which is of course great, but encourage involvement in groups and committees and stuff like that, because that is the greatest way to really stay connected with everybody.